Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
So there's so much happening right now that I'm not sure we can keep up with everything that's going on. I don't know about you, but it just seems to be that so much is happening. And not just so much, but everything is happening all at once and all over the world, in the United States, and everywhere, the four corners of the planet. I mean, seriously. Right now, I think the most current, and I'm sure this will change in the next 5 minutes, but Turkey has gone into and invaded northern Syria. So what does this all mean? Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. If you want to look at it from a completely secular view, Turkey is going in there and saying to the Kurds, because they're worried about the Kurds taking over, right? They're going in there and saying to the Kurds, you need to stay back. You need to stay where you are and not come any closer. Accordingly, Turkey has shelled the Syrian Kurdish forces in the region this week, determined not to let them fill the vacuum if ISIS leaves. And we're over there, too. Supposedly, we're fighting ISIS. And I guess Joe Biden, our illustrious vice president for just about 5 months longer, hopefully, he's now, issued a warning, if you will, saying to the Kurdish forces in Syria that they would lose U.S. support if they advanced west of the river Euphrates. He says, we've made it absolutely clear that they must go back across the river. They cannot, will not, and under no circumstances get American support if they do not keep that commitment, period. Well, I don't know about you, but if I'm the Kurds, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to kind of defend my territory, because I don't know that the United States, I'm not sure what the United States is doing. I mean, seriously, we have been over in Syria. I believe we're flying out of Turkey now and going into Syria. It's so confusing because everybody's intentions are different. For example, Russia, Iran, and I thought Turkey, want to keep Assad in. Now, maybe Turkey doesn't, I don't know, but who knows? And we want Assad out. And yet, we've been working with Russia at times to help accomplish getting ISIS out of Syria, or seemingly so. And we're at odds, almost like with everybody. We're at odds, really, with Russia and Iran. And yet, at the same time, we work together. Who knows? Flip a coin to know what's going on. And then there have been allegations, that Donald Trump said about Obama and Hillary Clinton starting ISIS. And if you look at some of the emails and things that they're finding, and that WikiLeaks has brought out, it may not be too far from the truth. So if you're looking at it from a purely secular type viewpoint, that's kind of what's happening. Now, what if we want to look at it from a biblical perspective? It could be with Turkey going into Syria and Iran being there and Russia being there. Eventually, it may call for the destruction, or not call for, but it will result in the destruction of Damascus. And that's Isaiah 17. And that typically biblical scholars are looking at it and saying that would occur before Ezekiel 38 and 39, which is the bigger incident, if you will. All I know is this. You have the Golan Heights sitting over there. That's at the border between Syria and Israel, that we have an interest in, that Israel certainly has an interest in. And here are all these people sitting here in Syria now. Syria has said the Golan Heights it doesn't belong to Israel, and we want it back, basically. And then you have Russia and Iran, who are always looking for natural gas, any type of a way to benefit themselves financially and economically. And the Golan Heights is, as I've written before, is just out of this world with riches. And just sitting there, maybe a biblical term, it's the spoils, right? It's sitting there waiting for the taking. And when you have all of these people coming into Syria under the guise of, we're coming over to fight ISIS, Russia, Iran, Turkey, the United States, what would prevent Russia, Iran, and Turkey from saying, now that we're here, why don't we just move forward and take back the Golan Heights as part of Syria, the Syrian border? It's not too far-fetched to think that. And again, with what is happening in the world today, there's nothing that I think that you need to overlook and that you can say, well, oh, no, it's definitely not this. I think you have to say it's quite a possibility that this is taking place. And we're really not hearing anything about this in the news. Once again, the Middle East is a hotbed, right? And all we're hearing about is, Obama's out playing golf. Obama's not going to Louisiana. We know all that. Hillary Clinton has a fundraiser. We know all that. We're getting these little bits and pieces that don't really mean that much in the big scheme of things. I mean, it means a lot if you're sitting in Louisiana and you've lost everything and your president is out playing golf. Don't get me wrong. But and as far as the world is concerned, as far as even biblical prophecy is concerned, it is small potatoes as to what's happening over in the Middle East with all of these countries just converging on Syria right now. And there we are again, we're a part of it. We're in the mix, but we're not really doing anything. We're not stopping Russia, Iran, and Turkey by any stretch of the imagination. And Turkey's supposed to be our friend, right? So again, I believe they're allowing us to fly out of Turkey, which in the past would have been unheard of, and everybody would have been upset about that, especially Russia. But now all of a sudden Russia and Turkey are in bed with each other. Again, if you don't believe in Bible prophecy, I mean, it's, at some point you have to say maybe there's some truth to this, because look at what's happening. It's lining up exactly with what the Bible has said is going to happen. And if you didn't hear my show the other night with evangelist Donald Perkins, you really should go listen to that. I mean, he's an expert in Bible prophecy, and he has a website too that you can go and find the website. It's mentioned in the show. And you can find that show at Spreaker.com. Just type in Susan Knowles and you'll find that show. And it really does kind of go, he goes into detail about some things in Bible prophecy. But it's important for us to understand the connections, because believe it or not, we're watching it unfold right before our very eyes. And again, those people who don't follow the Bible, maybe not believe in the Bible, you're not going to be seeing what we're seeing. But the believers are sitting here going, wow, this is all really matching up, and it's all happening right on time, right in God's time. It really is. And it's kind of like amazing to sit and watch this. And again, as Americans, we're sitting here, we're not really told anything about this. I mean, I had to go look at a BBC article, and a friend of mine sent a link to me from a pastor in Israel who was talking about it. So, we're really not hearing too much. And I don't think you will, because, September's coming, and we're going to have a new season of this and that, whatever. But I think it would behoove you to keep your eye on what's happening in Syria, what's forecasted in the Bible in Isaiah 17 about the destruction of Damascus. I don't know how close we are to that, but it certainly is amazing when we have all of those people lined up over there right now. And then for those who follow the Bible, Psalm 83 is going to be happening somewhere in there, and maybe this is part of the buildup of that happening. And then Ezekiel 38 is the Gog and Magog, and that is like, that you don't want to be around for. You really just don't. But again, I think that the media is going to be focused on Hillary and focused on Donald Trump and the election, and we're not going to be hearing that much information coming out of the Middle East. But the Middle East and what's happening there is quite important, and we really need to keep watching and seeing what's happening over there. As you may recall, I don't even know if you saw this in the news, because again, I didn't see it in the news. I had to go looking for it. But recently, Saudi Arabia has gone to Israel and asked Israel to consider entering into a peace agreement and opening those talks back up from 2002 with Palestine. And everybody is amazed by that because Saudi Arabia in the past has hated the Jew. They call them very derogatory names. You can't practice Christianity or being a Jew in Saudi Arabia. So it's quite unusual that has happened, except for the fact that we have, President Obama, who really wanted to make the peace agreement to be a legacy for him. And when he found out he couldn't do that, perhaps he turned to our friends, the Saudis, and said, hey, why don't you pick up the ball and run with it from here? I've laid the groundwork, and you can say that. Make sure you mention my name, and I'll spell it for you. And then also kind of quite curious is that Egypt now has gotten in on it and said, hey, Israel, why don't you consider entering into a peace agreement with Palestine, and we'll help you with that. And I believe Putin said, hey, we'll even host it for you. So everybody's really, really interested in Israel right now, really interested in Israel recognizing Palestine as a nation, all under the guise, if you will, that, if only Israel would enter into a peace agreement with Palestine and give Palestine back their land, quote-unquote their land, then we'll have peace in the Middle East. And again, if you're following the Bible, that's going to be anything but that. There's going to be no peace in the Middle East ever. As my guest said, evangelist Donald Perkins said, there's not going to be any peace in the Middle East until the return of the Messiah. And that's true. We can see that. Israel has had agreements that they've entered into in the past. And I don't think they last even long enough for the ink to dry on the signatures before everything is turned upside down once again. So I'm not sure what Netanyahu is going to do. I'm not sure if Netanyahu thinks, well, I'm not going to give up any property to Palestine. So I'm just going through the motions here, letting you people think that I'm going to be doing something when in fact I'm not. Or if Israel is going to enter into some type of agreement with a lot of pressure from Turkey, Iran, Russia, maybe the United States, we already know, putting pressure on them. And other countries may start to put pressure on them as well. And it's all very interesting, too, because, even China now is over in the Middle East and in Africa. When did you ever think that was going to happen? And it's an amazing combination if you think of it. If you have Russia, Turkey, Iran, and perhaps China as well working together against Israel, what do you get? Well, you get fulfillment of Bible prophecy is what you get. So, again, while everybody else is focused on what's going to be the latest trend, what do we wear, what's going to be on TV or anything else, we just need to know what's happening, what's really happening, what's really important. And I think we do. I know this audience does. You really do understand what's coming. You understand that for most of the time now we're being lied to, we're being kept in the dark, and it's all for a reason, It really is. And as it grows darker, we have to grow more as the light. We really do, the salt and the light, because it is going to get darker. And as we see what's happening around us, with all of the Hillary Clinton emails that nothing ever comes out of it. I mean, things like that. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous that nothing happens, and then we just keep going forward, and it's like, oh, well, it's just a couple of, 45,000 emails now that she put on a private server that leaked information that has information with the Clinton Foundation and the pay-to-play possibilities. I mean, anybody else, and anybody else would have been in prison by now, and yet she's still running for president of the United States. And you wonder, again, how many people really are noticing this? You are, but so many people don't even watch the news anymore. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to know how bad it is. All they know about Hillary Clinton is that she's a woman and she's running for president, and boy, isn't that great. That's all that a lot of people know. And that in and of itself, that whole thing about her running for president is really quite interesting when you look at it. What's this all about? I mean, there's been so much talk about her and her health concerns. So much so that, I don't know, in the past, I would say even in the recent past, there would have been a requirement to release medical records, or at least an assurance to the American public that she is able to run for president. And it would require more than opening a pickle jar on the Jimmy Kimmel show, trust me. But that seems to be all we need. We just need to go on Jimmy Kimmel, laugh it off, open a pickle jar, and everything's good to go. I don't know about you, but I've seen the pictures with, I don't know if she's wearing a bulletproof vest or if it's something else underneath her clothing. I mean, you can see it protruding. You can see something on her leg at times. There's a guy that supposedly carries a syringe around that whenever she has a seizure, he gives her medication, and now he's missing. Hopefully he's not one of the latest 4 that, met with an untimely death because they happened to drop a barbell on their throat, or they got shot in the back, or they killed themselves, something like that. Hopefully he's still alive and well somewhere. But, again, it's just so interesting what we allow her to get away with. And it wouldn't be the same thing with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump slipped one day or couldn't stand up and had to have people hold him up like she does, there would be a problem, and you and I both know it. So why is she allowed to continue, other than the fact, the obvious, well, she's a Democrat, a progressive left, and they want her to win? Why do they want her to win so much if they know that she's in poor, failing health? Is it so that she can be a puppet? They can take over the White House like Eleanor Roosevelt did and run the White House and nobody will know? Is that what it is? She can sort of be out of sight for a while, and they can just do whatever they want to do to run the country the way they want to run the country should she be elected president. Do they like Kane better than her? Is he a bigger puppet? So if something happened to her, he can take over? Is that what the reasoning is? And I don't know. It's all very curious to me. And anytime you see a progressive doing something, you can't just look at that and say, oh, yeah, it's that. No, you have to dig deep and go under and find out exactly what's going on. I mean, that's been my experience. It's never what it seems to be. And the information that came out recently about Uma Abedin, what is that about? Now, again, it just went through the news so quickly. Oh, she has Muslim Brotherhood ties. Now, we knew that. We really did know that. That's been talked about before, but it's been kind of like, well, she really didn't. She's in the family of those people that are Muslim Brotherhoods. But then we find out, she's published articles and helped her mom and, whatever. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. And we just go on like, oh, whatever. But is there some connection in wanting to get Hillary in to strengthen the Muslim Brotherhood in the White House? That if she gets in, she can bring in even more people from the Muslim Brotherhood into the White House to control our country and God knows what else they would do. I think we do know, but I'm just saying. So that would be my guess, trying to get Hillary in. I mean, this has been underway for so long. I mean, when Joe Biden didn't run, and I know he said it's because his son had died, and I I'll say halfway, believe that. But is it because they knew that this is their plan, this is what they wanted to do, and they did want Hillary in? And so if you don't have weak Joe running, what other weak individual could you get to run against Hillary so that she's sure to get the nomination? Well, we have Bernie Sanders, who's obviously easy to buy off, right? I mean, let's just make these allegations, right? Why is it that right after he decided to step down and say, okay, I'm supporting Hillary for president now, why is it all of a sudden he's got a $600,000 home? I thought he was a socialist. Well, we're sharing the wealth. I mean, when do we get to go into the house? When do we get our names on the deed, right? So he gets a $600,000 home, And then we understand that out of the deal, he gets to jet set around anytime he wants to do his business on the plane. I don't know which plane it is. I mean, gosh, how many do we own in this government? Maybe it's the DNC plane. But he gets to use that, and he gets to not have a barbell fall on his throat when he's working out. You know Bernie works out a lot, right? So anyway, it just seems like, and everybody knows it just seems like this was totally set up to get Hillary in. And I think it's more than just the fact that Hillary was owed this by the Democrat Party because she stepped aside to allow Barack Obama to get in before. Because with the Clinton machine, and it is a machine, she could have gotten in and knocked Obama out 8 years ago. But that wasn't the plan. And she agreed, okay, I'll wait my turn. And then they said, okay, you wait your turn, you're going to get in. But I don't think they like Hillary any more than they like anybody else. I mean, I really don't think they have any allegiance to her other than the fact that they want to use her in any way they can. Maybe use all the connections she has and has accumulated over her time as First Lady, as Secretary of State, Senator, anything else, any other position that she's held, right? So, again, look at this. Here comes all the information about the Clinton Foundation. Look at all the ties there. And again, if you haven't read the book Partners in Crime by Jerome Corsi, I get nothing out of promoting that book. Trust me, I get nothing from him. No money will be exchanged. But that book lays it out for you about the Clinton Foundation and all of the connections. And it's connections you're not even hearing about in the news right now. They're not even talking about all those connections. I read the book and I was astonished. It was like, I mean, you know that it's bad, but when you read something like that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's really bad. It's even worse than I thought it was. Could it get any worse? Well, yeah, it did. And again, if you didn't hear the show, I had him on a couple of weeks ago. Go to Spreaker.com, type in Susan Knowles, Jerome Corsi. You want to hear that show. I think he's done so much research that he needs to be on Fox News and every other station from now until the election talking about the Clinton Foundation. Even the Huffington Post came out and said, we want you to close down the Clinton Foundation. And what was the response? No, we're not doing that. We're going to continue to give money to ourselves. And if you don't like it, well, you can lump it. Don't go to the gym because you don't want to hurt yourself on a barbell. Okay. So, again, any other charitable, quote in quotes, organization that would give that type of money to themselves and still be allowed to stand as a viable IRS condoned organization is beyond belief. But then when you look at all the connections between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, you're just going to like, whoa, there's a scheme going on here somewhere. It's not a Ponzi scheme, but there's something going on. And the news is coming out, they did this in their free time, and it's no big deal just because the State Department people were working with the Clinton Foundation to bring people in to talk to Hillary and get her time. That's no big deal. What's wrong with you people? Are you crazy? And you're supposed to go, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. We should move on. Love Hillary's smock. That looks so cute on her. See, that's where your focus is supposed to be. And while we're talking about the smocks, I'm sorry. I know this is a side, but when Cher did the fundraiser for Hillary, and by the way, Cher raised $1.5 million for Hillary. You'll be glad to know. Hillary, honestly, it looks like she's wearing pajamas. Now, I don't know if she needs to wear these smocks because she's got all this medical equipment underneath that we're not supposed to see, but this is getting really ridiculous. I'm just saying. Really ridiculous. This latest one looks like a house coat. Like she has pajamas on underneath, a little house coat, and she just showed up, for a couple of minutes at Cher's house before she has to go lay down someplace. I mean, really? And nobody notices? Nobody says anything? Like, oh, love those smocks. Gosh, they look so cute on you. This is, and we're supposed to all just pretend that there's no elephant in the room, that we're not seeing anything, that everything is just normal. And I think that's the word. We're supposed to believe everything is normal. And we're supposed to go on and just go, well, you know what? The economy's looking up. People are getting jobs. Things haven't been better. When just the opposite is true. Our country is falling apart. People are fighting each other. And it's just unbelievable that we're supposed to be these gullible lemmings that just go, oh, okay, all right. And you shake your head yes, and you just move on. And that's exactly where they have wanted us to be. And it's exactly where a number of people are, because they're not watching the news. And even if they watch the news, they get a one-sided, progressive-leaning left message that has been carefully scripted for them to see, so that they won't know that anything is wrong. Everything looks like it's just great, and the Republicans are horrible, and that's all there is to it. That's all you need to know. When in fact, everything needs to be looked at closely. Things aren't as they seem. Now, I just want to touch briefly a little bit on Donald Trump. I am glad to see, I have to say, that his rhetoric towards people, his insults or the jokes that just don't fly with the entire country, and some people may not understand them, some people may be offended by them. I'm glad to see that he's really toned those down, that he's reading from the teleprompter and staying on that, which is, kind of a shame in a way, because that's what Obama does. But I think he needs to stay focused, and I think he's doing that more. He's reaching out to black people, Hispanic people, other people of color, which I think he needs to do. I think he also needs to reach out to those people, the never Trumpers, and the people that he really pushed away and said, I don't need you. He does need them. He needs to reach out to them as well, and he needs to unify. The thing that I'm not happy about is, from what I've heard, Steve Bannon joining the group. I don't like the fact, from what I've heard, that this guy is an opportunist. He's the CEO of Breitbart. I'm not sure Breitbart would want his organization in bed with any presidential candidate. I think it just goes against that separation of having a candidate and the media. That concerns me. It concerns me that if Trump is elected, what is Breitbart going to do? I want Breitbart to be fair and balanced in their assessment of Trump, and they're obviously not. But then they call themselves, they're part of the media. So I don't like that. I don't like the fact, too, that the media is all in for Hillary and they're not in for Donald Trump. I don't like that. We need to bring back people that are going to tell the truth one way or the other, whether people like it or not or agree with it. And I know sometimes people get upset with me because I post things about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, because I think it's important for people to know the truth, and then they can make up their own minds about what they've seen. I think I've been one of the more neutral people between Trump and anybody else. I do tell you what I dislike about what he's done, and I do tell you about some of the things that I think he's done well. Another thing that I think right now that I'm not too sure about, not too happy about, is he's kind of pulling back a little bit on that immigration thing. And I know he's doing it because he wants to get votes. Well, that's one of the things that everybody liked about him, that he said, I'm just going to go out, I'm going to build a wall. And now suddenly we may not be building the wall quite so high, and we may not be deporting 11 million people. So, those are the things that when he said it in the beginning, I didn't think that he could accomplish all that. I didn't think anybody could. It's going to be very difficult for somebody to do. I think what you have to do is you have to take away the incentive for people to want to be here. You have to go and try to, get the ones out that are here illegally, absolutely. And then maybe that's the new people coming in, because the 11 million, that's going to be hard to go out and find that many people. But for the 11 million that are here, you don't make it attractive for them to be here. You stop paying their medical bills. You stop paying for all these other social welfare programs. You quit allowing the employers to hire them and them not have to pay taxes. I mean, right now we've made it so much better for them to be here than the actual American citizens to be here. I mean, that's what you have to do. And it has nothing to do with the race or the ethnicity of a group. It just has to do with pure and common sense and logic. You can't take care of that many people. You can't have that many people on the government, welfare programs. We don't have the money to pay for all this. We just simply don't. If we all went over to Mexico, they're not going to take care of us. They're going to say, you know what? Get yourself back across the border. Get out of here. We're not going to take care of you. And Mexico has money. They don't give it to their people, but the government has money. But they're not going. It's just not feasible. And people may say, well, but we're the United States. Well, yeah, we're the United States. That we're not doing so well right now because we've had 8 years of somebody who has transformed us into a country that none of us recognize anymore. And I don't know how long it's going to take for us to quit limping, because we're limping right now, folks. We're limping. And we need to get our grip back and get on two feet in solid ground before we can start looking at other people and saying, oh, let me help all of you. And not only do we help, but we give everything we have. I mean, we open up the veins and we start bleeding, right? Because we've given them everything we have and we have nothing left. That's not what charity is about. You have to take care of your own home first, and then you can give to other people as you are able to stand on your own 2 feet. And right now we have people in the United States are hurting that need our focus and our charity just as much as anybody else. And the people here in the United States should get it first. Those people in Louisiana have lost everything for the most part. They need our help. They need our money. They need our focus. And so if that means that people are going to have to, that are here illegally are going to have to leave, oh, so be it. Because those people are American citizens. I'm sure people have green cards down there, but they're here in the United States, and they're our people because they're here legally. Those people are first in line in my assessment. And I know people are going to disagree with that, and then that's fine. It's okay to disagree. But I think that as times grow tougher for a lot of people, we are going to have to focus more on the people that are here in the United States as citizens, that are here as residents, and are here legally. Those people need to be first in line. And we need to stop making it so attractive for every other person to come here. And I do hope, if Donald Trump gets elected, that he still stands by not allowing the Syrian refugees in here until they are properly vetted. And even then, let's see why we're having them come here. Who are these people? Our government is not allowing Christians in. Why is that? Why is that? So I don't think we need to open our doors to everyone and say, come on in. And again, I know many of you out there will probably disagree with that, but that's the way I feel about it. We're losing our country. Our country's been transformed and is continuing to be transformed because we have people who come here who have no desire to be Americans, no desire to be American citizens. Why would we want those people in our country? They would not want us in their country unless we wanted to assimilate and be citizen of their country and follow their rules. So why should it be any different? Just something to think about. I have another article that's up on the Blaze, and it's called, Do Black Lives Really Matter to Black Lives Matter? I've been thinking about this question for a long time, and because we're so politically correct still in this country. As a white person, I'm not even supposed to be discussing this topic. I'm not a black person, not African American, so how can I even be allowed to discuss this issue? Well, we need to stop going there. We really do. I'm not going to have my free speech denied. I wouldn't deny that for anyone else, and I'm not going to allow that for my own self. I want to talk about the issue. I want to do it respectfully, and I want to do it intelligently. And it's just really bothered me watching, especially this last event in Louisiana. All of these poor people who are out there in water up to their chest area, practically, because the water is so deep, out there saying, hey, where's the help? And I've even seen, I've seen some African Americans who have gone on YouTube and saying, hey, Black Lives Matter, where are you? And again, if you call yourself an organization Black Lives Matter, to me that means you think, or you're making me think, that Black Lives matter to you. Well, what are you doing to show that? And some would say, well, they're all about police brutality and helping that way. Well, I don't see anything. All I see are protests with people burning down buildings, looting, rioting. I don't see any positive steps being taken to help black people. I just don't see it. And yet they get away with calling themselves Black Lives Matter. Oh, okay, that's great. But do they matter to anybody else other than the people in your leadership who are lining your pockets? And what do I mean by that? Well, let me ask you something. In a city that has the second largest proportion of black Americans in the United States at 32%, wouldn't you expect an organization called Black Lives Matter to come to their rescue, or at least offer an assistance when there's been a severe flood? And that's the percentage of blacks in Louisiana. And yet, I don't know about you, I don't see any banners up, Black Lives Matter, here to help you. No, I haven't seen that. Maybe you've got pictures. If you do, send them to me. And let me ask you this in another way. Would you expect an organization that calls itself Black Lives Matter to help out African Americans in a city with the second largest proportion of black Americans after receiving $33 million from George Soros? Or better yet, let me just drive this point home by saying, wouldn't you expect an organization that calls itself Black Lives Matter to lend a hand to the people within a city that has the second largest proportion of black Americans after receiving pledges in the amount of $100 million over the next 6 years from the Ford Foundation and other left-wing organizations? And by the way, the Ford Foundation is not connected with Ford trucks. I found that out. I thought they were, and I was really furious about that. But they're not. Now, I don't know. I've searched everywhere that I can think of to find Black Lives Matter who's out there. Anybody in the organization who's out there giving, as the organization, money for anybody connected in the flood. Black people, white people, Hispanic, Asian. I'm not finding anything like that. If I were African American right now, I'd be saying to myself, do I really matter to Black Lives Matter? Because I don't see it. It's kind of like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. Oh, we really care, so that's why we're down here. Make a photo appearance, photo op, and then out you go. What are they really doing? What do they really give back to the community? I really want to see that. Where I grew up, in a poor neighborhood, during the time that I grew up, there were black people in a particular neighborhood, very poor people. I didn't see anybody in the black community coming in really to help those people. I did see some people in the white community coming in to help. Didn't see people in the black community. I didn't see, I don't know, maybe Reverend Jackson was too young at the time, but other people coming in to help them. I didn't see that. And I still don't see that today. I don't see organizations specifically who say, we are for Black lives coming in to help in the time of need like this. And, and it's one thing where you say that you're going to help, but, people need certain things. Like Black Lives Matter say, oh, well, we need to go out and we need to help you because police officers are white police officers are killing our black people. And we've found out time and time again that's not true. It's justified. Okay, the Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, even in Ferguson, everything was dismissed. So you can't say, oh, yeah, that's absolutely true. But I'm sure that they do. But anyway, I digress. I don't see them out there going, let me help African American children so that they will have a better life than what they claim to see right now happening in the world. Okay, so why aren't you out there helping those children? Why aren't you, for example, just an example, these kids are returning to school. Why aren't you buying them shoes? Why don't you set up a Black Lives Matter shoe drive, right? So you can say, for all African American children, because we only serve African American children, right? We're going to hand out shoes for you. Come in here, get your ticket. We'll give you some money. You can go get your shoes. Whatever the case may be. I don't see that. But it was without even any. It took me 2 seconds. All right, no difficulty at all. I was able to come up with an organization called Portland Police Bureau Sunshine Division. They've been providing free clothing and food for 93 years, and they help all races. They don't say we're just for Black Lives Matter. They help all races. And it was so easy to find them. And so they're helping black kids. They're helping white kids. They're helping Hispanic kids. They're helping Asian kids. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe Black Lives Matter doesn't want to get into something like that. Maybe they don't want to hand out food and shoes. Other people can do that. Okay, so why not get into education? We all know anybody who's ever been poor in their lives or known somebody who has. And again, I was poor growing up. I lived in a poor neighborhood. I came from a poor neighborhood. I understand what it's like to be poor and what it makes you feel like when you are poor and how you feel so inadequate and less than everyone else. And it takes a lifetime sometimes to get over feeling like that. Okay, so I know how important when you have education involved, it can bring you up out of poverty. So Black Lives Matter, why aren't you out there helping? If you only want to help black kids, okay, help black kids. Help give them a great education. Make sure that they're going to school. Make sure that in homes where maybe either both parents are working and they're not paying enough attention, or there's single parenting in the home. Make sure those kids are getting to school and getting an education. Be right there helping the parents know how important it is for black children to get an education. And again, for me, it's all children, but for you, it would be black children, right? So why aren't you doing that? We see that the poverty level among black Americans is very high. It's the highest of all the groups. They're at like 27.4%. And the next highest is Hispanics at 26.6%, whites at 9.9%. So why aren't you out there making sure that these black kids receive an education and they're in school? And again, it was so easy for me to find another group, and just a random organization I picked. I don't even know anything about them other than what they say they do, called Save the Children. And their website discusses the importance of breaking the cycle of poverty. And they list a lot of programs that show what they can do to help. And it says, Save the Children, invest in childhood every day in times of crisis and for our future. Okay, now that sounds like a worthy cause to me. Sounds like an organization who cares about children in general. But let's say you wanted to go out there and invest in black children for your future. Why not do that? Why aren't you involved in that? Don't plead poverty to me, okay? Because you got like $100 million and then $33 million, and there are other organizations giving you money all the time. You got plenty of money that you could go out there. And if you don't want to use that money, then go out and start a program and raise funds for it, additional funds. You can do it. And you can make a difference, but not doing what you're doing. All you're doing is spreading hate is what you're doing. All you're doing is causing a division in the country. And you know it. I know it. It's no secret. You're just following the progressive left agenda. You know it. I know it. The country knows it. Everybody knows it. You know, you're not fooling most of the people. Unfortunately, you are fooling some of the people. Some of those people who really think that you really care about them. Some of the most vulnerable people who are filled with your false hope that you're going to somehow help them and give them a better life, when you're going to probably leave them worse off than you found them. And that's not okay for me. You know, so why not get involved in this worthy cause? I mean, we even had Barack Obama back in 2014, along with the U.S. Attorney General at the time, Eric Holder, say, you know, there's a school-to-prison pipeline for these black kids and Hispanic kids that because of disciplinary reasons, they're sent outside or they're suspended from school, and when they do that, it hurts their education. Okay. So if you know that, again, why aren't you helping? Why don't you have a Big Brother program? Why don't you have an after-school program working alongside parents? Why aren't you doing something positive? You know, and I know your argument again. Oh, well, you know, cops are killing black people, and therefore we no. You know, that's just something that you're putting that fear into people in the black community, because that's what progressives do. You operate on fear, and then you tell those people, I have the solution for you. That's all you're doing. Meantime, you're just getting rich. And those black people, let's say the black people in Milwaukee, are you going to go in there and you're going to help clean up that neighborhood that was burned down? Are you going to do that after the riots? You know, got pretty burned down there with looting and everything else. Are you going to go in there and help clean that neighborhood up? Or are you just going to leave it like that after you have encouraged people to do things like that, allegedly? You can't have it both ways. You know, you can't sit there and claim that you're this organization that really cares when it's obvious that you really don't. That what you care about is how much you can get out of it. And right now, you're getting a good amount out of it. You really are. You should be very proud of yourself that you have been able to convince other people to give to you. And let me just give you a little hint. Something that I don't know if you want to think about, because right now your ego is probably involved and you're so far over the moon for getting that much money that you're not thinking about this. You're being used. You know, when you're sitting there and using other people, you're being used by people like George Soros and other people who are using you to fulfill their agenda. And I don't even think you know it. Or maybe you know it and you don't care, because you think you are a part of that group. Well, guess again. You're not. You're being used. You're just puppets in this game. And you can go on and think about it like, oh, well, I'm up there with the elite. No, sorry, you're not. Just because you were invited to the White House and sat around and talked your talk doesn't mean that they were listening and they really cared. You know, it's kind of like what you do with going in the black communities. You just talk your talk, but you don't really care because all you care about is getting the money and getting richer and richer. It's kind of like that. So maybe you deserve what you're going to get eventually because of the fact that this isn't genuine. And I hate to be the one to tell you, but it's just the way it is. It's not genuine. And maybe it's time that you wake up. You know, all of my life I've seen organizations preying on individuals, especially those who are vulnerable, by promising them that they care and want to help. But time and time again, those who claim to be there to assist frequently fail to produce results which benefit others. Too often they leave those they have filled with false promises of hope worse off than when they found them. And as they say, proof is in the pudding. And so far, the only ones I see being served are those within the Black Lives Matter organization. And I've come to the conclusion that that maybe only they matter. In other news, I don't know if you've heard, but the American University of Afghanistan in Kabul was under attack. We're yet to know all the details as I'm taping this. It said basically that several American professors are inside, along with possibly hundreds of students. Many appear to have escaped through emergency doors, and witnesses say they heard gunshots and a blast, and many believe it was the gate blown open, letting the attackers inside. The president of the university confirmed what was happening, but didn't give a lot of details. So, our hearts and prayers go out for them, to them, and just hope that everything is okay. They've had a lot of trouble there. 2 professors, an American and an Australian, were kidnapped recently from the university on the 8th of August. 5 gunmen wearing Afghan military uniforms abducted those 2 at gunpoint. God only knows what is happening to them. The 2 foreigners were taken from their SUV while driving on Sunday night on a main road near the American University of Afghanistan. I don't know if that means they were taken by us, by somebody else. I'm not sure. They said though the kidnapping is sometimes the work of criminal gangs, the fear is that the hostages could be sold up to the Taliban or the Islamic State, the ISIS. Kidnappings aren't uncommon. And I believe, looking at I think one of the people that were kidnapped, I believe one is a woman, the Australian, I believe. It says 3 other foreigners were kidnapped in Kabul over the past year, have all been released, including an Indian woman, Judith D'Souza, who was freed last month. And then an Australian woman, Carrie Jane Wilson, was abducted in April, and her whereabouts are unknown. So more of these things are going to continue to happen as we in the United States, meaning the president, doesn't want to see things for what they are, most likely due to the fact that he probably does, but there's another agenda that he's working. And we have to prepare ourselves for things like this to happen more often in the United States. I think they are coming, and that's why, sort of wrapping it back around to the Middle East, is why it's so important for us to keep our eyes on that. I think it sort of gives us some hints of what might be coming down here in the near future. So we do need to be aware of that. So if you will, just keep praying for them and pray for the people in, I think it was Amatrice, Italy, and another location that had earthquakes. And I tell you, if I say this, if you don't believe in Bible prophecy, it's hard to see why you don't, because all of this is really just quickly taking place according to biblical plan. And here's something interesting. It's another Hillary Clinton tidbit today. We have to have some of those, because her life right now to us is interesting because of the fact that she may become president of the United States. Again, God forbid. I always have to follow with that. But anyway, Clinton finance director was the middleman between the foundation and the State Department. Newly released here, Hillary Clinton's national finance director has emerged in newly released emails as what one watchdog called the middleman between her State Department and family foundation, sharing donor information with a top Clinton confidant when he was working at the foundation. This gives you a real clear picture of how close everything worked together, and how Uma is everywhere, don't you think? Uma is just everywhere. And she's been with Hillary Clinton for a very, very long time. But it says Dennis Ching, C-H-E-N-G, before joining the campaign, worked for over 3 years as the foundation's director of development, and before that as deputy chief of protocol in Clinton's State Department. Boy, I tell you, if you do well for Clinton, you can just keep riding the wave and keep moving up the ladder. Now, it says he's managed to stay below the radar for years, but emails obtained by Citizens United in a Freedom of Information Act request show that him working closely with Clinton aide Uma Abedin, particularly after leaving the department for the foundation. So there you go. The links just continued to roll back and forth between the foundation and the State Department. In one 2012 exchange, Ching sent a 9-page email to Abedin, a 9-page email, my gosh, to prepare Clinton for a briefing on the 67 VIPs attending a foundation dinner. The guests range from major real estate and business executives to former politicians and aid organization representatives. The email sent while Ching was working at the foundation shows how seamlessly Clinton's aides move between government service and the foundation, staying in contact with one another and sharing details about VIPs connected to the group. Now, if you don't think that classified information and secret information may have leaked in those emails back and forth, I don't know how they wouldn't. They shouldn't have even been talking to each other about these things. We only have some emails here. We don't really know what they were talking about. It probably went beyond the foundation dinner into who these people are, their connections, maybe some things that were said within the State Department about these people. You never know. And we may never know unless these emails come out. And it said this man was an effective fundraiser at the foundation before coming on board the Clinton presidential campaign. During this 3.5 years working at the Clinton Foundation, published reports credit Ching, now 36. He's now 36, and he's been doing a lot of work for a long period of time here. They credit him with building a donor base in excess of $246 million. Now, you know he's valuable in this Clinton campaign. It says in another November email from 2012, Ching offered Abedin a ride on a private plane to Little Rock. He wrote, "Are you coming to Little Rock? We have donors flying privately on Friday if you want to ride." I mean, what better thing to do than get on board and sit there and talk to these donors? I mean, what access the State Department has, the donors have to the State Department through UMA. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better setup. She sent her full name and date of birth for the passenger manifest, apparently accepting the offer. Abedin herself has been criticized for collecting paychecks from the Clinton Foundation and another Clinton-aligned group, Teneo, T-E-N-E-O, while a government employee. Now, again, that Partners in Crime, that book I was telling you about earlier from Jerome Corsi, he writes all about that group and all about UMA. So you really want to get a hold of that and see all about it. Again, it's amazing to me how we see all these connections. We know all of these things. The Department of Justice, who had that private meeting with Bill about while the Clinton Foundation was, quote unquote, under investigation, has a private meeting with him on the plane, most likely about that and Hillary too. And yet we sit back and nothing happens. And they're holding off. They're waiting until after the election, hoping that she wins and that nothing is said. Again, folks, we are being played. You know it. I know it. And we need to try to wake some more people up. And we need to demand some changes. Now, I've always thought that if Hillary gets in, it's very possible that the Attorney General Loretta Lynch could be on the Supreme Court. She really could. I know a lot of people think it could be Obama. I don't think so. I don't think that's for him. I don't think that's out there in front of the public enough. He's not getting enough attention when he's on the Supreme Court. He'd have to do something like the UN. But for other people like Loretta Lynch, I think very much she could be on the Supreme Court and she could do a lot of damage. So we just have to keep plugging along. We have to keep watching everything that we can, keep trying to wake people up, and hopes that Hillary will be defeated and will not be the next president of the United States. And perhaps we can start trying to turn some things around. We'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic that we can at least try. Whether we can succeed, going to be up to a lot of different factors. So we will see what we will see. I thank you so much for being here. There's a lot in the news. I know sometimes it can be discouraging to watch, but just know in the end, we know where we're going. We know how it all ends, and we win in the end. And we just need to keep encouraging each other and keep looking up. It does get better. So until next week, thank you again for joining us, and I will see you then. Take care. God bless you.